That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome back to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. This is the last time that we will be watchers of What If as we talk about the season finale of What If. And this is also, I think, really like one of the first episodes that we chatted about offline before we actually recorded.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm Jordan Wiegand. I forgot to say that. And with me is Jack C. Prasad, who's seen this episode 3 times, unless if you've added more since then.
No. Only 3 times so far. But I feel like I could watch this like an infinite amount of times, and I probably would still find new details and still be amazed by it, honestly.
An infinite amount of times for the infinite amount of universes in here. Let me see here. I forgot to look up Easter eggs. I'll click that now, and we'll have it load while I'm talking, I guess. But anyway, we're going to be talking episode 9, What If the Watcher Broke His Oath, directed by Bryan Andrews, written by A.C. Bradley. It premiered on October 6th, 2021 on Disney Plus, and it had a runtime of 36 minutes. The synopsis was, I think they'll update this. They sometimes update these later, but the one that I found on Disney Plus today was just What If the Watcher Broke His Oath. So I don't know if they'll expand on that like in the next few weeks. Sometime, like I think for Mandalorian season 2 finale, I think they just said like the finale, like and then like a week or two later they actually added a real synopsis to it. But what was your initial thoughts there? I guess, for people that are listening, they hear you've watched it 3 times and that you could watch it an infinite amount of times. It's probably ranking pretty highly then.
Oh yeah, I think this is my favorite episode potentially. It's definitely in the top tier with the Strange Supreme episode for me. So I was a huge fan of this one. It just kept me engaged the entire time through. I watched it the first time while riding on a bus from like my home, my family home, up to my college campus, and I had to like contain myself because I was just like I was just awestruck at some of the stuff that they pulled off in this.
Yeah, I thought this was a very good episode. I think this actually fixes most of the complaints that we had throughout the season. When it comes to these episodes ending on kind of like these cliffhanger, like, ending real quickly. Now we kind of see why. Like, it's pretty much not long after that these episodes end is the Watcher going and grabbing these people. So kind of fun to think about that in another, like if we rewatch the whole series now, when we see, Ego come in and say, hello, Peter, that's Doc Ock in the trailer, but him pretty much coming up to Peter in the Dairy Queen, we now will have that insight that, oh, okay, so like right after this, the Watcher's going to come and grab T'Challa Star-Lord. And I think it fixed a lot of those type of issues. So yeah. I think we talked about last week, I said this could really change like how we look at season 1 as a whole. I still see some people not like the show, which is fine. It's whatever. But I saw some complaints that they tied all of these together because the What If comics usually don't. But this is the MCU. They were obviously wanting to build to the Watcher breaking his oath because he does so in the comics. And it doesn't mean... I think season 2 can have some one-off episodes. I don't know if every season is going to combine to where the Watcher's like, gotta break my oath again. Like I feel like that'd get repetitive. So there's got to be some reason if they were to tie them in together again, or if they're just going to be continuous one-offs from now. And they're like, okay, we did the connecting one. That was fun. Because what else can you top? You can't top an Ultron in Vision's body with Infinity Stones.
Right. I can't think of anything, but maybe I just haven't thought enough about what could be possible.
That's true.
Anything is possible, So.
So let's dig a little deeper into this episode. So the plot starts with the Watcher recruiting Captain Carter. Is that where it starts at? Captain Carter?
Yep. Captain
Carter. That's what I thought. So she's got her own Winter Soldier suit, which I didn't really pick up on until I saw this Easter egg thing. I was like, oh, that's why her suit looked a little funky. It's because they're doing the mock of the of what the one Cap wore when he wore just like the blue and silver on the Lumerian star. So we get kind of like that whole scene from the beginning. Natasha's still trying to set her up with somebody the way she was trying to set Steve up with somebody. And I like these little parallels. And I think why it worked for me in this episode compared to some of the other ones when it's like almost just a straight up swap is that this was like 2 minutes, right? And then we're on to the next thing, which I thought was fun. But like seeing her face off against Batroc and stuff like that, and then you're like, you kind of get sucked into it a bit, and you kind of forget what's supposed to happen, and then you see the Watcher, and she's like, she even sees him, and she questions it, and then he's just like, Captain Carter, you have been chosen.
Yep.
Which I thought was cool. I mean, like Jeffrey Wright just absolutely kills it.
Oh yeah.
The Watcher, and I hope they bring him into live action at some point. We then get the Star-Lord T'Challa, which is at the Dairy Queen, and Star-Lord is there. I guess they somehow get tipped off that Ego is on Earth, and they come back, and he starts facing off with Ego, and then he destroys them pretty quickly, which I'm sure upset a lot of people. But then the Watcher then comes and takes him as well, and even calls him T'Challa Star-Lord or Star-Lord T'Challa or something.
Yeah.
I was like, what? They really don't know what to call him.
Yeah.
Because Star-Lord was the name Peter's mom called him. So like, why is he named Star-Lord?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just to give it like that parallel to the universe. I think that's about it. You're right. It is a little bit of a cop out. I wish they would have just said T'Challa, because that like T'Challa, leader
it's
of
still
the
his name, right? It's still his name.
Exactly.
I guess the only thing you can really think of, he's in space and he is like a prince of Wakanda, so he's still a lord, right? So like, I guess that could, still work itself out, but it's just funny that he even calls him that, like Star-Lord T'Challa. Because especially there's not another T'Challa he gets, so there's no need for the specification. Right. Then we get Party Thor in Vegas defeating some Ultron bots, picking up from his episode where Ultron comes in to his reality. Then we get the Black Panther Killmonger, which again I thought was a weird choice, but I think they kind of reference this later on why he picks him.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first I was thinking, okay, what's he gonna come and get Pepper and Shuri? But no. Then we had Gamora, and this is the one that probably threw off lots of casuals if you're not listening to the show, or if you haven't heard us reference this character when we're talking about on the show. But there was an episode where Tony landed on Sakaar after he blew up the Chitauri in Avengers. Mm-hmm. He gets stuck. The portal doesn't stay open long enough for him to fall in. He lands on Sakaar. He somehow runs into Gamora, who has defeated Thanos, or he defeated Thanos with the bomb. I'm not really sure exactly on what it was, but at some point she gets, Thanos's armor and his sword, and she's a good guy though. I mean, she's not like, right? She didn't seem anything like hell bent on.
Yeah, I mean, we see her start to the scene where the Watcher grabs her from.
Yeah.
she's melting down the Infinity Gauntlet,
Right,
like
right.
to make something else. Like, I mean, it's clear that she doesn't have the same aims as Thanos in this one. So I think it's. I also want to mention, because this was one of my favorite parts of it, because we've talked about how Tony Stark has been treated in this series.
You mean like when he talks and the Watcher's like,
Yep.
not you.
Not you. You're irrelevant. And like, he's died in every other episode. So people were like, I can imagine so many Iron Man fans just be like, oh, we get Tony Stark, and then they're like, nah, no, not really. So I thought that was just hilarious.
To be fair, though, I think if if we had seen the full episode, they probably would have got a lot of Tony in that one, because if it's a what if Tony landed on Sakaar, which is I think is what the name of it's supposed to be, so we probably would have got a whole bunch of him. But it is funny then that they would take the one that's not even named after him. You know, like the episode would be named after him, and he's like, we're going to take Gamora. But I can see why. They want to diversify. Like the writers probably want to diversify these Guardians of the Multiverse. And she's familiar with the Infinity Stones, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was funny when, I saw people complaining about that as well. So it was funny. But we're supposedly getting this in season 2, which I wonder how they'll retrofit that in there.
Yeah,
if I'm them, just when you release it in season 2, just slide it back into season 1 in the drop down.
Yeah, I know TV shows that have done that. Like one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Community. They released 2 episodes in season 3 in a different order. Now on streaming services, it's in the order it was intended to be in. So I think like they could do that. Or if they call back, maybe the Watchers like, oh, there's one universe I forgot to show you from to explain the stories of the Guardians of the Multiverse or something like that. Right. You could come up with something, I'm sure, because it's literally like infinite possibilities. So I think if they can't find a way to make it work, then I will have serious questions.
I just don't want this one lost, like the time, like I really don't. Like it'd be nice if they're able to fit it in somehow, but I just feel bad that we kind of got this shoehorned in Gamora without any background. Like, I wonder how they decided which one to cut. We kind of talked about this offline, but like, was it just like the last one to be produced for whatever reason? And they were like, well, we're on a time crunch. We got to release it. We can push it to season 2. But or is it like as they're going along, they're like, look, we're going to have to cut one of these to season 2 because we just don't have the timetable. We want to keep the finale the same. So that means we have to have the party Thor because of the leading in with the Ultron bots. And we got to keep episode 8 because it's a direct continuation of it. What other one do you cut? Me, obviously, zombies. They play as little role in this one as possible. Like, I think it would work better if they had switched zombies with Gamora's episode, because then in season 2, they'd just be like, here's where the zombies came from. Like, we didn't see too much of it except for zombie Wanda. To really be like, oh, crap, like that is, they played such a little role. I think that could have been the one to have switched, but
I think so as well. Even though as much as I liked that episode, I think that it does make the most sense. But I think you could have also just replaced that with like, if it's the Sakaar episode, isn't the outskirts of Sakaar just like a trash planet and they just like dump trash everywhere? So you could just open it up and it's just like Ultron gets covered in tons of trash or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So. So he picks up all these variants, right?
Mm-hmm.
To battle Ultron. He brings them into like a little, what's it called? Bar. Like a little tavern.
Like a pocket dimension.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah, I think that's where they are. And then like they fashioned it as after like a tavern, with Strange Supreme being the bartender, And the Watcher, then it kind of explains what's going on. And I think the pacing's mostly okay. I think this part could actually probably be expanded. I'd love to see these characters kind of get to know each other more before they have to like team up together a bit, because I think that would have been really interesting.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see like, some more of the planning, almost as in like Endgame, how we get like a ton of that, and like these characters really starting to interact more. And I think it would have been cool to see that, but I also understand why they kept it short, because that wasn't meant to be the focus of the episode.
Right.
Like, it would have been cool, and would have given a lot more context to some of the later scenes, I think, as well.
Yeah. So they travel to a universe that's lacking in intelligent life, but Thor accidentally draws Ultron's attention before they're ready.
Yep.
And Strange has already kind of put the protection spells on them. They're kind of like camping out on a campfire type thing. Ultron comes down and just like blows the cliff and just thinks like, okay, that'll be enough.
Yep.
He's like, that was easy. But he's wrong, obviously. But T'Challa is able to steal the Soul Stone from Ultron. And that's when Strange then summons the zombies, where then we get... this is where we get zombie Scarlet Witch. And this, I actually audibly like gasped, and I was like, because they kind of allude to something, right? Like Party Thor, this is the scene that was in the trailer. Party Thor says about, oh, zombies, cool, or whatever. And Strange is like, not just zombies, or, something like that.
It's what came with them.
Yes. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder who he's referring to, because we did have, zombie Thanos. We had all these characters. But then I saw, the dust settles, and you see Scarlet Witch, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. What did you think of it? Did you think right away Scarlet Witch, or like what was your thought process?
I didn't think like I didn't think Scarlet Witch. I was thinking maybe it's like the Hulk. Maybe he got zombified somehow.
I was thinking like Wasp too, like giant Wasp.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been cool as well. But yeah, I didn't think Wanda immediately. But I thought it was a pretty cool reveal to do that, because we saw how powerful she was in the end of the zombies episode there, and what she kills like 3 people with it. She kills Bucky, Okoye, and Kurt.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Kurt, yeah.
So I think like it makes sense that it was her.
Yeah, it was. And she's one of the strongest people in the Marvel universe,
right?
So having her go up against them is pretty cool. Now, what's also ironic though too is that it's Vision's body, right? Like and that is something I wasn't really thinking.
Almost like a realization of that as well.
Yeah,
because you can see like Scarlet Witch or zombie Scarlet Witch, her expression kind of soften when she realizes it's Vision on there. So before, of course, Ultron literally just destroys the entire planet. But
yes, yeah. But they're able to get out of there, and they escape to Ultron's home universe, which is, of course, where the Black Widow that we met last week is. And that was, I thought, a really cool tie-in as well. She comes in, she doesn't really have any idea who they are, and she starts kind of fighting over like the Soul Stone with them. And then, Captain Carter kind of has to talk her down, kind of gives some information enough where Natasha feels like she's able to trust this Captain Carter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so Ultron is going to overpower them pretty much until, Nat with Captain Carter is able to, she finds the arrow of Aaron Zola and is going to shoot that. But before that too, we get like the Doctor Strange time stone thing, right?
Yeah, well, there's a bit more there as well because they scramble over the stone. They eventually get it, and Gamora has the Infinity Crusher
Oh yes, yes.
that will destroy all the stones, and they use it, and you think like, oh, is it over? I mean, it's not over because there's still like 15, 20 minutes of the runtime,
Right,
but uh, I think they kind of even play with that, like because Thor's like, oh, it's over. Hey, we did it, guys. Come on, let's go. And then T'Challa's like, I'm not so sure, man. And we get this big reveal, which I thought was great because when they first revealed the Infinity Crusher, I was like, that's a bit of a cop out. I'm not gonna lie. So, like to get rid of all of the stones, like, oh, you just happen to have something that destroys them all, yeah. But we find out that it doesn't work in this universe because each universe has different Infinity Stones, and therefore that only works in Gamora's universe. So I think that's like a really cool way to get around that, and also it makes sense. So I think that's really good by the writers on that to add some more suspense to it.
So I'll take the side of I thought that was the weakest part of it. So I got a few things to say about the Infinity Crusher because I think the reason it's even shown is I think this has to be in that Sakaar episode. I think that this is what she uses to destroy him, and we probably see that in the missing episode. And since they introduced it in that episode, they probably had to say, well, she would still have this, so we gotta like if she didn't use it, people on the message boards be like, well, why didn't she just use the Infinity Crusher? That's what she did in her episode. Why didn't she just? So I feel like they then had to say, okay, well, we have to use it, but it has to not work. So again, I think that's something that's missing from the episode, but I want to know why it wouldn't work. I get because it's a different universe, I guess, but also it's just matter from the universe. Is it because there's different matter? Like I don't understand why it would not specifically work.
I think back to like Loki in I think it's episode 1 where we find out like the TVA, there's all of these Infinity Stones from each different universe and how they're pretty much worthless there. So like we know that
they're only worthless at the there because they're outside of time.
Yeah, but like we know like they're and they don't look entirely the same, I think, in that episode either. So I think there's and it makes sense that each universe we've already seen slight differences in each universe. So it makes sense that inevitably there was some difference in the universe that makes those stones a little bit different. And it could be like 1% to 2%, but it's enough to offset everything else.
Yeah, I think it just can get confusing because in Endgame, while they go back in time, they actually don't go back in time. They go into a different, it like creates a branch, right? So then now that is a different universe, but those stones work. So it is, I think, a little confusing on how I think they had to do that because of however they wrote it in the Sakaar episode, which we don't know until whenever that comes out, I guess.
Right.
Because I feel like that's the only reason it shows up. Because we when we see it, and I'm like, whoa, okay, she's got this thing that's just going to destroy them. But I think it was supposed to be something that ties in that they're like, oh, remember this thing that crushed them in her universe? It's not going to work because if we didn't use this, people would complain that, okay, why didn't she just use it? And then so they had to think of another way that it wouldn't affect it. They were like, okay, well, now it can't affect it because they're from a different universe. That's just what the writer in me is thinking. Let's see. So yeah, they try to do that, but then somehow Strange is able to use the time stone, right? To stop what Ultron's doing. So again, his time stone works in this universe. So again, it kind of like is confusing a bit. So I don't understand.
I think it's just like all of the Infinity Stones work in all of the different universes,
right? Because they have to. Because Ultron goes from each universe anyway.
Yeah, but they're different enough in that
they can't get destroyed.
That they have different qualities that make them, slightly different. Just enough to make it Yeah, I guess it is a little bit confusing. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. But
So I think
yeah.
again, this will just be lost until this episode premieres if we see it,
Right.
because they probably explain how it works in that like it must do something with like, okay, it knows it's made out of these things and it counteracts those things, but since they're made of different things in this universe, it can't counteract those, is probably the way it works. But again, it's so strange that they were not able to just fit this one in or push back What If until they could show this one, or because it'll feel really out of place in season 2 unless they really. I don't know how they'll do it. We already talked enough about that though. So my other little nitpick here is that Nat is able to make a shot like Clint would, because that's not really her skill set. I wave it away, but man, she got him right in the eye, which is from like how far away? Like a mile away? Like she's
I don't think a mile, but it's far. It's far.
Yeah.
I guess the Red Room had like some archery or something.
That's true. That's true. She has some sort of
been
training
in
it.
Plenty of stuff, right?
Yeah,
So I think, and she hung out with Hawkeye a lot. Maybe he was just like, yeah, here's how you shoot an arrow with exact accuracy. Like,
yeah, while you're on a bike in midair.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought it was cool that they were able to bring it back and bring in Zola.
Yeah.
Again here. So Zola will erase Ultron from the inside, and then Killmonger, we kind of saw him in the diner, like playing with an Ultron head
in like the campfire scene, right? He's
I think it was there.
Gamora even says like, "Hey, do you trust him?" Like to Thor, he's like, "Yeah, of course," because
Thor trusts everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, the most he's done in his universe is throw a party and get yelled at by his mom. So so he's very trusting. But we have, he's like playing with an Ultron head and like absorbing the vibranium or something into his.
I think that's what it is. Like, because his suit is vibranium already, right? Like, so I think it has to do something with that sort of technology.
And that's what Vision's body's made out of, right?
Right. So and his armor's kind of made out of that. I think it's like a synthesized version of that. So we see him take the Infinity Stones, and he starts to like talk to everyone else about like, hey, look at this. We can fix all of our universes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question for you about this, because I know you're not a huge Killmonger fan. I like him as a character. I think he was a cool enough villain. His soundtrack's also pretty good. And
the song is great. Like that scene in Black Panther where where it goes upside down and he's taking the throne. It's great music and it.
But so did this make you like Killmonger a little bit more as a villain? Did it add more dimension to him? No.
No. Dang. He says, "Oh, we can fix our universe." What is wrong with your universe? He took over Wakanda. He's in charge. Like, what else would be wrong in his universe? That he's just power hungry.
That's how I would explain it though, because that's exactly what he wants. The reason why I think he's such a cool villain is that he can be at the top of the world and still want more power. And I think it's that destructive nature that he has that makes him a cool villain for me. Yeah. And so he's trying to justify to everyone else, like, hey, look at this. That's what he does, right?
He's just sweet talking him.
He smooth talks his way into every situation to gain more power.
Like, he's not going to actually let them fix their universes,
right? So I think it's like I really like this, because I think it fits Killmonger's character, and it makes perfect sense with just who he is, and I really enjoyed it. I know you're not a big Killmonger fan.
Well, no, in this case, I think that he's actually, to say something nice about Killmonger, I think he is a better character in Black Panther, the movie, than he is in What If. I think in this, it almost is too cartoonish of a turn, where he already kind of has everything, and I get that he wants more, but like, in this, I feel like it gives him too much, too much power that doesn't make him interesting. Like, you know, what was interesting was that he was trying to stick up for people he thought was, you know, undermined. With the Infinity Stones, I think he would abuse it more so where he's not interesting. It's almost like the way I look at it is, okay, we defeated Ultron, who was, again, not really power hungry, but like once he defeated Earth, he kept going. And that's the same thing with like, it felt like a 2.0 version of that with Killmonger of, okay, we defeated Ultron. Oh, but now Killmonger wants to do the same thing. He wants to make their universes better, but he's just going to end up being bad like Ultron was. And now we got to defeat him again. But it like happened so late into this episode. And I think it makes Killmonger a less interesting character, because what made him interesting was kind of his original morals that he had in Black Panther. But in this, it's almost like mustache twirling villainy.
Okay, I see what you mean.
You know,
I see what you mean about it.
Yeah.
I found it pretty interesting, but I can see your perspective on it.
It just got when it got to that point, I was like, oh, now we got to defeat another guy. It's almost like when you're playing a video game and you think you defeated the boss, and then like the bigger boss comes, and you're like, haha, you're like, I thought I just beat the game, but this guy came out of nowhere and he wants to defeat me now.
Yeah.
That happened in Mass Effect, by the way.
Yeah.
When Mass Effect 1, when I thought I defeated Saren, and then it's like, nope, Sovereign now. And I was like, oh my goodness, I thought I was done.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Just because, you know, I've said I really enjoy Killmonger as a character. I think he's interesting. Do, and I think like it showcases what makes him the difference between like a hero and a villain. It's that he has the right morals at times, but the fact that he is so corrupted by power and the idea of power is what makes him just terrible. And I think it shows like I'm really interested in like morality, ethics, that kind of stuff. So I like how it's like, you know, a person with good morals can still be corrupted by power. And I really enjoy that kind of profile of villain, I guess you can say. So
yeah,
that's why I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do think those type of characters are interesting. For some reason, it's just Killmonger that just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I like Michael B. Jordan. I think he plays the character well. Mm-hmm. Though I did want to bring up, there was that, we forgot to talk about it in that episode of his. Some of his voice acting was a little off. Not this episode, but the first time he appears when he's like, Wakanda forever. Yeah, that. I was like, what is this? You know, like it wasn't the like usual gusto he brings to it. But you know, I'm not sure how often he does voice acting. So it could be
I don't think it's all that often.
Yeah,
but,
no.
So we can give him a pass.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, it's just, I was like, when I was watching that on my lunch the one day before we record, I forgot to bring it up though, but I was laughing at like, because he delivered that like 3 times the same way, where you're like thinking he's going to be yelling it, but he's more like Wakanda forever.
That I can't believe I didn't notice that. I'm gonna rewatch that now.
Yeah,
and
I want that as like a ringtone or something.
Just an alarm tone to wake up to in the morning. Wakanda forever.
He does it like the way when he does it like that. It's like when he's fighting the robots, and he's like running off on the rhino, and you're like, okay, I'm sure, you know, like Sebastian Stan had some clunky delivery too, and he knew it too. He said in like, I think one of the behind the scenes things, like, did I deliver that right? So I do think some of it has to go on. I'm not sure if it's the director of the episode or if they have a specific voice director. I know sometimes they have specific voice directors. I'm not sure if it was something like that with Michael B. Jordan too, but it is just funny to like, I still think back to it randomly at times and laugh. So that's like fun, campy stuff at times. Yeah. You know, it's a cartoon. Don't take it too seriously.
But we see it after he takes the stones, he's not able to convince everyone, not this time. And we think he's about to like fight them, but then all of a sudden, Ultron's body gets up.
Yeah, Zola.
And one thing that I'm not sure if you've seen like any of the comments or comics on with Zola in this kind of form, but on TikTok there's this user that I really like. His name is Straw Hat Goofy in it. He's
let's not give free publicity. I'm just kidding.
He has
go ahead.
He is like he has millions of followers.
Never heard of him, but
he's fantastic, and he was talking about how like this is how Zola appears like in some of the comics, like in like the stomach of like a robot. Is it
like a MODOK thing?
It reminded me very much of MODOK, but
yeah, that's what I thought they were originally going for.
Yeah,
in Winter Soldier, when they did that, but I guess I can't
remember what comic it's in, but it happened in one comic, and I think it's kind of a cool detail to bring in there, and I think it's just like the perfect like sci-fi twist really towards the end of just like of that kind of thing. Like Zola was never going to really just like destroy Ultron for his own for the good of the universe. You knew there was going to be something else to it, so I enjoyed seeing that. And yeah
let's see here. So Doctor Strange gets the realization that it wasn't to defeat. They didn't have to defeat him. They just got to keep the stones separated from the body. So I'm not sure if I missed this or not, but a lot of people said that this was part of the plan then, right? Like that the Watcher knew that Killmonger was going. The reason why he brought Killmonger was because he knew Killmonger was going to take the stones off of Zola's body, and then that was to make sure that Zola didn't have the stones, but also make sure that Killmonger doesn't have the stones. And then they're kind of locked in this pocket dimension.
Yeah, Strange Supreme goes
hustling out.
Yeah, Strange Supreme uses like all of his power to trap them in basically the same kind of dimension that he was in.
Yeah,
and I think I don't know if like that was the plan all along. If the Watcher could see that much, like about like this.
Some
this
people
is how
theorize that's why he brought, because otherwise, like
I think that has to be why he included Killmonger, because you're right, it's a weird choice to bring him if it's
you
not
watched him the whole time like backstab everybody, and you're like, this is who we need here. He killed Tony. He killed like Sam. Not Sam. He killed Rhodey. But let's go ahead and
go for him.
Yeah, bring him in. And you know what? You know why I also don't like Killmonger here? He was very rude. T'Challa's like cousin. He's like, I'm not your cousin. I was like, okay. I guess he's saying like different universes, but he was like,
it is kind of rude. But I also think it showcases their different personalities, like a diplomatic versus very, very just power hungry type thing. So
power for hungry. You mean hungry for power?
He's just it is kind of rude for him to say that, but Doctor Strange, he traps him in this pocket dimension, and is Strange Supreme a new Watcher now? Is that what he is? Because the Watcher tells him, hey, can you just keep an eye on that for me and like make sure they don't break out? He's like, yeah, whatever. I've got nothing but time.
Yeah, because his universe is gone. What else is he gonna do?
It's a little bit of fun in there, right? He's got some friends to.
Oh yeah, and we forgot to mention too. It's really cool to see like Strange Supreme like bust out the monsters too.
Oh yeah,
really cool.
Oh, that reminds me.
When he looked like Hellboy too.
Peggy's look of realization, like when he like uses like the squid arms. That pretty much confirms for me that it's the same monster between the two of them.
That's what I think.
Which we were talking about that in the Strange Supreme episode. Like, is that the same thing? But it definitely seems like it with that. And I actually messaged you and I was like, is it possible that Strange Supreme is the most powerful character in the MCU that we've seen so far. And I think it's possible. He has the powers of literally everything. He absorbed the exploding blast of a universe or an entire dimension, honestly.
Well, I guess it depends. It would either have to be him or maybe even the Watcher.
Honestly, the Watcher is pretty powerful as well. But I think like he is definitely in contention for one of the most powerful.
He absorbed all those creatures that were very powerful. So like he's, I saw some people trying to say Wanda's still more powerful than him. Now I don't think so.
I have a feeling he just summoned a dragon, and
I think it goes like this: you have Doctor Strange, Wanda, Strange Supreme, right?
Yeah,
I feel like that's the.
I think that's about right. Yeah,
that's the levels.
Yeah.
And then the Watcher is somewhere there. We don't know too much about his power sets, but he was able to kind of go toe to toe with Ultron, as well. So it is interesting to see how that works. But yeah, so they separate the bodies. That's pretty much the end of that. But then they all have to go their separate ways again, and they're back in the tavern, going through the door like one by one. And Natasha wants to refuse to go back because there's nothing. I mean, there's literally nobody left.
Yeah.
In any of the universe, there is nobody left except for her. And the Watcher does something very nice for her. He puts her in a universe that lost their widow. And I was waiting for this moment. I was like, how are we going to tie into, I think we even thought about it. Yeah, we were kind of theorizing, like, how would episode 3 tie in to this finale at all? Well, it doesn't until this very end where they bring in, Black Widow into the universe of the ones where Loki took over New York. So we got to see the fallout of that. They lost their widow, and we have the team of Cap with Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, right? Which was really cool to see. Some people, everybody complains about everything, but I was going to say some people complained about, Black Widow goes and just punches a Norse god and it's over, but, or kicks Loki and it's over. But, it didn't really bother me. I thought it was a nice ending.
I thought it was cool. And, I liked this ending, and although it does make me kind of sad because it probably means there's not sequel possibility for it now. That's the one sad thing about it.
It's also kind of a jerk move from the Watcher because he puts her in a universe where Clint's dead again. So there's just kind of like, well, you can't hang out with your buddy here either, but you're alive at least.
And you have people, there's people, right? Like that, that's a benefit.
And hold up. So never mind. Okay. I was going to say there's no Tony in this now, right?
Yeah. Right.
But I was going to say she goes back before Age of Ultron. I was like, okay, so what happens when Age of Ultron comes back up again? But Bruce and Tony are dead. So that should not happen. So we should be good. Or else she'd be like, God, I got to go through this again. I lived through this for however many years.
Yeah, I thought it was a good, solid ending to it, and I'm glad they were able to tie it in there because it was the only episode missing up to that point, and we see everything else try and sort out. T'Challa and Peter Quill are fighting off. It looks like they're still fighting off Ego in that scene. So he didn't defeat him right away by just putting a bomb on him.
Oh, I thought he did.
Well, I think the end scene seems to suggest that they're still fighting.
Oh yeah, he is shooting something in his Dairy Queen outfit. Yeah.
So I think it suggests that they're still potentially fighting him. So, and then we get Party Thor. He goes back, meets up with Jane, and who am I missing here? Who am I missing from this lineup?
Gamora and do we see her?
We see her like with
Sakaar?
Tony.
With Tony?
Yeah, but there's not much indication about what's happening after that. Maybe it would make more sense like with the episode. And yeah, I think that's everyone except Captain Carter. Because I held off on that because I texted you this afterwards. The first 2 times I watched this, I missed the end credits scene because I was like, oh, there's not been an end credits scene before. And the first time I was watching it, I was riding a bus back up to my college office, and it ended like the episode ended right as I got off the bus, and I was like, oh, perfect. But that end credit scene, wow.
Yeah.
Did you want to go through that and just?
Yeah. So we get back to like the Lumerian star, and they find out they were like shipping something on this freighter that is the Hydra Stomper, and there's somebody inside, and that poses the question: is Steve alive? Is he a Winter Soldier type deal? And is this a setup for season 2? Or, some people have claimed that Captain Carter is in Doctor Strange 2. I don't know how, or if it's even going to be this Captain Carter, maybe another Captain. I'm not really sure. But if so, is this some sort of setup for that? I don't know. But I would assume that this is just actually maybe set up for nothing. I think this might just be a nice ending of her being like, "Oh, Steve's still alive."
Maybe, yeah. I thought it.
They have their happy ending.
I think it's cool because I think it does give the possibility of a sequel, and that's what I wanted, because after I saw like all of these other ones like get kind of wrapped up and everything. I wanted there to be like because we spent so much time theorizing about like all the awesome sequels that could spin off from each of these episodes. So I'm glad there's a little bit of something there, and I think it will be interesting to see what they do with it, because I really hope it is for something. That might just be the optimist in me, but I feel like there's no way Marvel would do something like that without it paying off somewhere later, right? Like that's just not their style.
Yeah, I could see a season 2 storyline. The only thing is, I don't know like how interesting it'll be. Like this is a nice setup, but it's also like this was the one universe where like barely anything changed in these episodes. So it'd be like, are we just gonna get the Winter Soldier plot line, but with Hydra Stomper and Captain Carter, or will it branch off more? Like if it can start branching off of the regular MCU path with just Peggy and be something different, I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cool little thing, and it gives us something to wish for, I guess, in season 2.
You know what it reminded me of too? Like when she's walking up to the glass to see through the window, it reminded me of the end of Civil War, I think it is, when he's going to break them out of the raft. And like you see the window and then you see him kind of like walk up to it to break them out or whatever. Like that's what it kind of reminded me of. That scene like was almost framed the same way or something.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. Any other little things that maybe we didn't talk about on this episode?
I mean, there was just a lot of just so many cool moments, I think, that brought so much of these episodes together. Like, I think it's pretty much everything I would have wanted to see from the finale. Although I did see some people kind of making some jokes about the Watcher putting Black Widow in a universe that lost its widow, and people were like, man, why couldn't they just put her in the sacred timeline, right? Why
that means Scarlett Johansson would have to come back.
Yeah, exactly. and I was just thinking, contracts probably is the
and also they didn't lose their widow actually, because we all have Yelena now,
right? Yeah,
as well.
True.
Yeah.
So And also that would get rid of all of the stuff they set up in Black Widow, huh? Like at the end of that. So it wouldn't make a ton of sense. But I thought it was kind of funny that that people were pointing that out.
Yeah, and in this as well, when she's when Black Widow is learning if she can trust Captain Carter does name drop Ivan and Alexei from Black Widow.
Right.
Which is nice. Nice little tie-in there. Oh, and just really quickly too, this Doctor Strange making the duplicates of Mjolnir. Was really cool. Really cool.
That was such a cool thing. And I think it just showcases, it reminds me of Infinity War on why can't I think of on Titan? That's what it is. Where they're fighting Thanos and Strange is able to make a ton of copies of himself and all of that. It reminds me of that sort of thing.
And it was in Infinity War, right? Like where that's what it is. It's his duplication spell that he used against Thanos, but instead he used it on the hammer.
Yeah. I also think it was kind of cool. Speaking of Infinity War, kind of tying back the like in Infinity War, when you think they might pry the gauntlet off Thanos, when they have him when they have him pinned down. It reminded me the Ultron scene where they have him, pinned down there.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that. So I think there's a lot of it's cool how they were able to maintain some of those parallels that they've been keeping in with pretty much every episode.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk some quick news that we got yesterday, because I want to get your thoughts on this, because we didn't talk about this. But for people that are sticking by here, the Variety, I think it was, announced, Variety or Deadline, announced, maybe Hollywood Reporter, one of those three, announced that Kathryn Hahn is coming back for more MCU films and series, but that she's also getting her own series on Disney Plus as Agatha Harkness. What was your, thought when you saw the news?
I think it has potential to be really interesting, to develop that character more, because I thought in WandaVision she was a pretty interesting character, and she's been in some comics as well, so I think it'll be good, especially if she's going to be appearing in more MCU films, to kind of get some background on her, because we get a little bit of that right in WandaVision, but it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do with it. I think if they approach it from a similar lens to WandaVision, what was Agatha doing during all of this? That would be terrible and boring, I think.
Well, you know what? So just to quickly add in there with that, I was telling my wife about it, and she was excited because she liked Agatha, I guess. Mm-hmm. But, I was like, she's like, maybe it'll be a prequel. I was like, I don't want a prequel, though. I want to move on. This is phase 4. I want to keep going forward. I don't want another, as good as Black Widow was and stuff. I don't want another Black Widow now where it's we're kind of, diddly daddling in the past. I want to start going to what this is building to.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because they could do it they could make it lead into a movie sort of. I think they definitely could make that work. I guess it really just depends on the direction they take it. If they take it in a direction where maybe Agatha somehow regains consciousness in this state that Wanda put her in, and she's trying to escape from that, and she's able to do it, and that sets her up for a Scarlet Witch movie or something like that. I don't know. That could be kind of interesting. But I get what you mean about a prequel, since we do get some background about her in WandaVision. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do with it, because I don't know. There's not many directions they can take it in. But
yeah, and I guess that's so my original thought on this when I got it, people might have seen this when I tweeted out, is I don't know how to feel about it. My initial thought was, I don't really need or want an Agatha show. Now, I will preface this by saying I thought the same thing with Loki. Like when they first announced Tom Hiddleston coming back as Loki after we had already seen what happened in Infinity War, they had to kind of dance around it, and they said that like this would be about, it'd be a prequel, him going back and forth in the past and like living out throughout his, like almost like seeing him throughout his 1500 years, you know, through different points on Earth and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, okay, don't really need it. Sounds like it's not going to affect anything. They couldn't tell us the real reason, obviously, because we hadn't seen Endgame, where this other one gets escaped, and it became this. It's my favorite Disney Plus show. So, Marvel show. So I'm not like writing this off. I just think I don't know where it can go that's interesting to me right now. Like I think Agatha's interesting, but I think what makes her interesting is some of her connections with Wanda and some of these other Marvel characters in the comics and stuff. And it depends, like, okay, is it just a strictly Agatha show? Like, is she not going to interact with some of these? I mean, you know, we can't rule it out, but we also, I would say, probably not just going to be Agatha, because if you look at WandaVision, they pulled in randomly, right? They pulled in Darcy from the Thor films. They bring in Jimmy Woo, and they brought in Monica Rambeau. So that was really cool. And maybe something like that will happen here too. But it's like right now she's brainwashed, right? She's under a spell from Wanda. Maybe it's broken in Doctor Strange. I don't know. But I don't know. She was an interesting character, but I don't know if I want to just focus on evil Agatha the whole time or her redemption.
You know, just for the chaos, imagine if the way that she gets out, like, let's say the series is about her getting out of the mind state that she's in, right?
Yeah.
Imagine, like, Marvel is just like, now's the best time to bring in Mephisto. And they just bring Mephisto to do that. That would be the most chaotic, but, and I think it would be really funny after just, like, all this time, people theorizing about him. They're like, what if they're just like, yeah, you know what, they wanted Mephisto enough, let's just make a series to just introduce him, but disguise it under the idea of Agatha having a series.
That's
like,
true.
It would be hilarious, I think.
Like I've seen some people think that like she's gonna try to get the Darkhold back from Wanda or whatever. I'm like, I don't know if that's interesting though. Like, if anything, maybe the start of her redemption, because in the comics she isn't like straight up evil, so it could be. It could be the start of that, which would be cool. But right now, with so little information, I'm just kind of like, that one's on the back burner for me. Like, and at this point, I know that like, we have 30 shows and stuff, but we don't need that many shows, honestly. Like, I don't want it to get too big to where like, I'm assuming at some point it's going to be 52 weeks a year, and I'm not going to have any breaks doing this show. But, you know, I want to start seeing Fantastic Four and X-Men start really getting integrated into this. And I'm not saying it'll take resources away from it or whatever, but it's like Agatha's like the last thing on my mind right now. I'm like looking ahead to like, I want more Shang-Chi. I want some, Fantastic Four finally. And I want to start seeing some of these X-Men characters come in, because those are the ones that I'm like, Agatha stood out in WandaVision, but like right now I'm kind of like, I don't know where it's going to go. So I'm looking more towards characters I know a little bit more about, I guess.
I've got two more theories then, just real quick. What if maybe the Agatha series, you know, we got the Ralph Boner joke at the end of WandaVision. What if somehow like there's a way that they link that actually to the X-Men, and it was just like just like a fake reveal all along or something like that. That would be crazy. That would set the internet just on fire.
It would.
But I think it's.
But I don't want it.
That's fair. I think it would be better if the mutants were introduced like
brand.
Not like from a different multiverse. Like, oh yeah, they've been about this whole time, just chilling in the X-Men mansion, right? Like they've been chilling. They just didn't want to intervene, you know. This is
good. This is a theory I've heard about, and I like to subscribe to. Is if you've ever read, you probably haven't, but if I'm anybody listening, if you read Powers of 10 and House of X. It was the Jonathan Hickman relaunch of X-Men comic books recently. They did a storyline with Moira McTaggart, okay? And Moira McTaggart, okay? She is a character in comics for X-Men that was and she's in the movies. She's played by what's her name? Why am I blanking on her name? Rose Byrne in the First Class and Apocalypse. And she is a character that typically is not a mutant, but kind of recently has been relaunched as a mutant. And she has this cool power where like she dies. And okay, I know
the way you explain that doesn't sound good, but I'm sure there's.
She's got a super cool power where she dies, and that's it. No, where she dies, and then she ends up like reliving her life, and she knows now, like, okay, maybe I don't do that, right? Like, there was one time
right?
She died like on a plane flying over to meet Charles Xavier. And it crashed. And so the next time she's like, okay, I can't go on that plane then. Like she like knows that kind of stuff. So in there, at one point, she tells like the X-Men, like she convinces Charles to like hide and not come out. Like there's one time where they come out to the world and say, we're here. And then bad things happen. So she's like constantly trying to find the right time to come out as mutants. So what if the mutants have always been there, but the reason we haven't seen them is because she has gone through this cycle a few times, and she's like, the best time is now after Thanos has been defeated. They're very excited about superheroes because they saved the world.
Right. Yeah.
We can now come out and maybe not face as much persecution, but they still do. And I think that could be we enter in on maybe her 9th life. I think she has like 12 or 13 in the comic run that she has. But like, if we come in at a point like that where it's like that's why they were hidden, is because she's kind of gone through this, and we could have a whole movie just dedicated to Moira McTaggart going through her lives, or a TV show going through her lives, where then she finally like, okay, now Thanos is defeated. Now I can come out as mutants and maybe we'll be accepted more. And then that's why Charles is not like 14 or 20 in college, like First Class, but he's still older now, and he's still been a mutant his whole life, but they've had to suppress themselves and hide themselves.
Right. Okay.
I recommend that too. I recommend House of X and Powers of 10. Yeah. Sounds
like a good series. My other theory, which is not as exciting as yours and does not have any backing really whatsoever. I think it could be interesting if Valentina Allegra de Fontaine comes in and she we start to get what's the organization she runs, like Leviathan or something it's called?
Oh, I don't remember, but she is probably putting together a comic book team known as the Thunderbolts. I don't know if they'll call themselves that in this, but yeah, that's probably.
Yeah, but I think it would be kind of cool to see that, because we've seen a few people get recruited so far into this, so it could be interesting. I like yours a lot better, though. I'm not gonna lie. I like that. Your idea is a lot better on that.
And I will say that they usually use a lot of Jonathan Hickman stuff. He, the bases of Infinity War with Ebony Maw and Call Obsidian and stuff were characters pretty much created by him. And as recently as I think that series is 2013. So they're not afraid to use newer stuff in the MCU, and they've used a lot of Hickman's stuff before. So it's possible. I mean, there's a reason they probably put him on X-Men, knowing that hey, we got the Fox rights back. We're gonna be able to use this stuff in the movies. Yeah. But I don't want to get everybody hopes up, because I just think it could be a really cool emotional story if we followed Moira McTaggart going through her multiple lives. And in the comic, at first you don't really understand what's going on. And I forget what issue it is of those, but because she's born in early 1900s, and then she dies young and then like relives her life, and she already like they do this whole thing where like she's in the womb and she already knows her parents' names and stuff because she keeps all of her memories from the previous life. So it's really cool. I definitely recommend, if nobody's read that, to check that out. Some of the stuff in the Hickman run is weird, but that storyline specifically is really cool, and I think would fit really well into here. And I've listened to other podcasts where they kind of like speculate like, oh, that's the way they could do it. And I really like that because it keeps, without bringing them from another universe, it keeps the history of them being mutants, but also doesn't make us have to go back and do a 1960s movie.
Right.
You know,
right.
like we keep the characters as like, okay, and you can even get to know Charles Xavier if you had to do like if you did a Moira Disney Plus series or movie where like the multiple times she's met him and you're kind of getting to know him through, you know, through those lives that she's living.
Right.
And then when we get to meet him as fully grown or whatever, we're kind of caught up to where what he's gone through and stuff like that. Without having to do flashbacks, you're just going through the actual life, you know. Like I think that could be really cool structure. But
I mean,
so
it's
Kevin
Groundhog
Feige,
Day, isn't it?
if you're listening,
it's
Feige,
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, except for a whole life, that'd be brutal.
Yep.
But yeah, Feige's listening. There you go. We solved it for you. Just kidding. He already knows what's probably going on 10 years from now.
Yeah. He probably has like the next century planned out. Like Marvel just has like this giant map, I'm sure, that just like has they've got it. They've got it already.
All right. Well, that was What If season 1. So excited. I guess maybe if we're lucky, season 2's next year, or maybe it's 2 years from now. I don't know.
I'm excited for it whenever it is because I really enjoyed this entire series.
Yeah.
The animation was beautiful.
It is. Yeah.
The stories felt meaningful, especially after, this final episode. And, it just gave some really cool just moments, I think. So I'm very excited to see what they do for season 2. But yeah, it was a blast.
It was. Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. The finale just was everything I think I wanted out of the finale. The connections. The only thing, another thing, not to end on a sour note here, is just Party Thor got kind of annoying a little fast here with some of his stuff. But I think they don't really know what to do with Thor at times when when they don't have Taika, there with them.
Right.
But ultimately, I think the finale was a win. I've seen a lot of people say this show wasn't for them, and I respect that. But I think if you can stick it out and watch these 9, you might feel better about the first 7 with the way that these tie, like the last 2 really tie everything together. And they're not super long, so you can really go through 9, I think, pretty quickly. But yeah, I think if I'm going to throw this into my rewatches, I probably slot this in after Loki. Loki opens up the multiverse pretty much, and then we can get, then I think you can watch these 9.
Yeah.
Because I like to do them chronological rewatches. So I think that's where I would kind of slot this in. And then my idea is to slot in, if the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire rumors are correct, I'd slot in Spider-Man 1 through 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 right around What If, as variants that then might be in No Way Home. So,
yeah. Oh man. Just one last thing, because I looked over to the side of my desk here, and that new minifigure of the Peter Parker Zombie Hunter, right? Yeah, you've got your Loki one there.
Yeah.
Imagine if, like, just in that movie, instead of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, it's just Zombie Hunter Spider-Man.
like Tom Holland plays all of them.
Yeah, he's just all of them. It would be chaotic, but it would be kind of funny at the same time. I don't know. but
it's not gonna happen. Did you see Tom Holland was partying with Tobey Maguire in some bar the other night?
Yeah. I think
It's
feel
looking
like
pretty good.
It looks
It's
good.
looking
Yeah,
pretty
it
good.
does. It does.
Yeah. There's been supposed videos of Garfield on set too. If you want to look those up,
Ooh, okay.
if anybody wants to look those up and see, some people thought it was what's the thing called where they why am I blanking on this? The technology where they just kind of
motion capture.
No, like dub the where the deep fake.
Oh,
Some people thought it was deep fake, but really you see his gut like breathing in and out, so it can't. I don't think it's really deep fake, but
okay.
Just saying it could be a possibility, and we probably get another trailer next month, I would think.
Hopefully, yeah.
And rumor is Doctor Strange trailer in December, so
hopefully
that'd be great. Well, where can people follow you, Jack?
They can follow me on Twitter at jcprasad16 on there. You can see I'm planning on doing a little bit more in-depth reviews. I mentioned these like Lego Marvel minifigures based off of all the Disney Plus shows. I want to do a bit of like a short review series on the ones that I have. I only have 2 of them so far. And also, if you want to hear my thoughts on, soccer, on Doctor Strange and Ant-Man, when they inevitably become the most powerful heroes in MCU in my dreams. Follow me on there if you're interested in soccer. You can follow my soccer podcast at Final Third Show. That's all I've got.
It's been great having you on here. We got to get you back on here again for something else at some point. I have no idea what I'm doing for Hawkeye yet. It's got a month and a half, I think, to figure that out. Which
a little
is
bit of time to rest.
Great time to figure that out. I also think I want to relaunch the Star Wars podcast I have, because I came up with this really great idea, and people can let me know if they're interested or not. But I came up with a great idea. I think I want to cover Book of Boba Fett on there, but I think I want to do a road to Book of Boba Fett and start with Attack of the Clones, and then like do a review of Attack of the Clones, like rewatch it, watch Clone Wars episodes with Boba in it, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian. I think I want to kind of do everything that has Boba in it that's canon on a rewatch, and just kind of do like a road to Book of Boba Fett. I think that could be a lot of fun to see how that goes. It's a lot of work, but I think it'd be fun for the few people that tune in. But so if you're interested in me relaunching the Pod Awakens, which I kind of stopped after I was doing some Bad Batch episode reviews, but it was just me on there, and it was brutal. Like, it was brutal to like recap by myself. I couldn't like bounce anything off, like how I can like toss you a question and like take a breath. I couldn't do like any of that. And then like, I'm all stuck in my own mind thoughts. I don't get any input from like a co-host to say, hey, how about this? And part of that is like, I've had like Logan and Matt on those shows too, for like Mandalorian or Rise of Skywalker. But not a lot of my friends watch the cartoons. So it's great that you watched What If. So to be able to cover that, because I thought maybe this would be another one that I'd have to go through alone here. And it kept me honest. It kept me caught up on the show. It kept me, because sometimes I fall behind on shows if I'm like, I fell behind on Bad Batch because I was doing it by myself. And I was just like, so, exhausted from that. But yeah, so let me know if you want any of that. You can also email us at marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com, on Twitter at TOInfinitySaga, Facebook.com/Infinity Saga and beyond. And I also just want to shout out Sean Burns, who wrote into us on Facebook. He said that he brought up a good point here that I think we both agree with. That, when Mandalorian was airing its first season, they moved an episode to Wednesday because of Rise of Skywalker coming out. Sean believes this is why all of Star Wars and Marvel are moved to Wednesday, so they don't have to do that every week. Because we're getting to the point where Marvel shows would be every week, so you'd constantly kind of have to shift one to a Wednesday for like Shang-Chi, or you'd have to shift it to a Wednesday for Black Widow, or shift it to a Wednesday for Eternals and then Spider-Man. So I do think you brought up a good point that they probably just moved it to Wednesday to not have to worry about that. I think the point still stands on why does Star Wars have to be on Friday? Star Wars doesn't have a movie for another like 2 or 3 years. But, whatever their market research is telling them. And we think it's because Jax has no classes on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That is why they did this.
I haven't seen anything that disproves it yet, so.
You know what? If next semester you have a different off day and they shift it to that day, I'll really be suspicious.
Yeah. Then there'll be some questions to be asked.
But thanks for listening to our recap if you stayed this long, and have a great rest of your week. And I'll have some stuff coming up for the time in between this and Hawkeye, but enjoy the time off here and a little breather between MCU projects, and we'll catch you next time.